Good evening, welcome to Conspiracy Cafe. I'm your host, George Freund. We're with you now. We're with you to the end. And last Thursday, we were at the end because they had some major technical difficulties at that media. And we had a lot of cleaning up to do. And the boys were working at this very, very strenuously for a good effort to make sure that we're back on the air again. Things are a little bit different. I got to actually fly the boat a little bit or something like that tonight, so I had to get my pilot's license and practice doing the the ceremonial sake test before we get into battle and take on the forces of darkness at Conspiracy Cafe on Toronto's one and only thatchannel.com, because this is where it's at, baby. It don't get any better, and the world is moving at warp speed. I've got to do this show a little bit differently because it's like a time capsule from last week with a little modification, and then there's what's going to happen Thursday because things are coming unglued at the seams. Many places, with the debt problems in Greece, the riots, the burning of Athens. The war drums are just beating so hard, and we have a couple of stories posted on the blog that I think you see that all elections are a fraud, that there's a major push to put Jeb Bush in the White House. So we were right on the money when we were talking to you about guess who's coming to dinner, because we're at the cutting edge. People pay millions and millions of dollars to get spoon-fed, useless media. And right off the bat, we're driving the wooden stake in the heart to say there's a major power play going on to put the Bushes back in control so that they can be in charge of the wartime government that is soon to come to the United States. And the whole election process is a scam and a sham. Where are you going to find that? It's like I've said many times before, sometimes you find things out and you're never the same afterwards. Every breath you take after you find some of this stuff out, you're just never the same again. You can't be. Some of the useless stories, of course, was just God's grace. I could listen to the BBC this morning because it was the only one in their little short snippet they play in Toronto that didn't mention Whitney Houston's passing. But that's the thing about the world. The world is just controlled by some sort of demonic force that's all we do is try to idolize and worship people like they're gods. And of course we're disappointed because they're mere mortals and they will die and they expire, sometimes not even at their own hand. It's with a little help from their so-called friends. It's another big story we'll be working on for Thursday as well when we get into the Jared Lee Loughner case as well. The big death happening there. See, we posted something on the website about the CIA hiring a mind control specialist, and then one of the major players behind this dies. This has happened so many times with some of the things I've come up with. There's direct cause and effect. I say something within a very short period of time. Principals in the conspiracy I'm talking about lose their breathing privileges. It happens all the time. That's why I came up with the, shit and shiver explanation for a lot of things that go in the world, because people have to shit and shiver, because if I connect the right dots, you're in a lot of trouble. You don't have to worry about pensions. Nobody has to worry about pensions because our Prime Minister gave them all away, and Davos didn't even have the guts to tell us before he left. He just does it there in front of his global brethren and flushes us all down the toilet, so we'll have to have, Freedom 95. Work till you're 95 and they'll give us the needle. That'll be our pension. But the Super Bowl happened. Madonna's at the Super Bowl. If we can show her image to our fans there, the Daily Mail usually does a very good job with images. I didn't watch the Super Bowl. I didn't waste my time. I have no interest in watching Madonna with her satanic rituals, luring us into whatever we're being lured in, the New World Order. But you can see all the symbolism there, that this is just flat out evil. And you've got the horns on top. Like everything goes back to, basically like ancient Egypt and, advanced Satanism. Of course, she's got her legs spread, all the images, and this it's just absolutely unbelievable that people don't see this for what it really is, that she's wrapped herself up like some sort of goddess. The whole affair is just absolutely mind-boggling, that this is where we put in all our effort to deal with things. So there's many, many images. Maybe some people wasted their time to watch the stupor bowl, as some of our fans call it, because it's a complete illusion, a complete waste of time. It's just bread and circuses, something from ancient Rome, to keep us busy while we lose everything we have and the New World Order moves along. So everybody gets their body piercings and their tattoos and wears all these great costumes, and I guess, you know, gets a very big high for an adrenaline rush doing all this work. They're very well paid for it. I'm not paid for any of this, but I work for the other guy. But the image that we have to stop in, like, how can you have any doubt about what you're seeing before your very eyes? The all-seeing eye. It's right there in front of your face. They don't hide it, who their gods are, who they worship, how they worship it. And then they all profess that, you know, somehow we're the good guys. And the people we're supposed to go to war with are the evil guys. And they watch this and they look at us and they call us infidels. Well, what else could you call us? By and large, for nations that may or may not profess the Christian faith, that's just not what we are. I used to look a long time ago at the book of Revelation. And when they talk about the 144,000 who are saved, I used to just think, wow, that number's so small. How could that possibly be? Because everybody thinks they're a good person and that they're going to get through this. And they profess the faith that they're going to be saved. The number's so small. And then I realized there's a difference between what we were then, Santa Claus Christians, to what we are now. And then I look at that number and I go, it's so great. That number is so great. There's no way that we could find 144,000 people to see through this mess for what it really is. The number's too great. Way too great. But we're working on it. This God code that we brought up previously on the show is just absolutely startling, because at least it tells us where we come from. The square root of 1% of us can change destinies. And I think we're seeing that. We brought up some time ago about what the Bible Code said at the time when Bible Code 3 was written, about who'd be running for president, what some of the events would be. And some of those events have changed, because there's 5 timelines. And with positive action, we can change these timelines and get into something a little bit better, where we don't have the all-seeing eye controlling every move we make. There's enough of us to be determined enough to change the paradigm, because what they want ultimately is an apocalyptic war in the Middle East. And we don't want to give them that. We don't want to give them the power over the planet Earth, because they're just plain paganistically evil. And they can't be trusted with that, ever. They lust for money, they lust for flesh, they lust for evil, for violence. There's just nothing that you could ever possibly imagine that they wouldn't do, because they do it. They don't even think twice about it. And maybe the few that don't just tolerate it and cover it up, and that's why we have to put up with the stupor bowl. But Madonna and our songstresses, actors, aren't the only ones. Another one that we have coming up here is one in Eastern Europe, a Polish girl, Doda. And, you know, there's no mistake about some of the images in her music videos. Of course, they sell lust and sex. But this is a very, very pertinent image. I won't be able to get into this one probably till the next show, because it really gets into our Jared Lee Loughner and the Gifford shooting. But the United States has already approved a medical treatment called suspended animation. What do we see here? We see people suspended in suspended animation in their cubes. So that's something we have on the show for next week. Then you just see almost like the cyborg type element, which are things we've talked about before, that they're working very, very hard to meld man and machine. And these songstresses and such are very good at this. They just live on death. Like, who wants to relish death. Like, you have to be a totally twisted individual to be in that. And of course, you know, they like to leave their mark on the bodies, and then you see this individual with the missing eye, the one eye again, a very ritualistic thing for the New World Order. The satanic signs. It's just mind-boggling. There's nothing they won't stop at. And there's our all-seeing eye friend on our money, or their money, or American money. The lusts, the perversions, and then their master, Lord Baphomet. And they make no bones about it. They don't hide it. It's everywhere. This is what you expose your children to with this type of stuff. So why do we bother? It's just absolutely evil. And it doesn't stop there. There was a, I guess while I'm on the same page, I should just continue with this one. This just ended up in the newspaper. This is art, imitating life perhaps. Daily Mail article, the terrifying lifelike sculptures bringing panic to the streets. Now, who would call this art? That you put a dead body in the water under a bridge and tie balloons to its butt without people even knowing what it is. So a lot of people were calling the authorities to say, you know, terrible things were happening, or had happened. You know, someone else up here, at least this one, the billboard's worse than the image of the human being. Then, of course, this is a nice, you know, thing to walk down the street for. You got your graffiti artist killed. But it's also very symbolic when we get into the Google Doodle about London and the approaching terror attacks, where we talk about the artists. The artists leave their mark, just like the dog that licks the bowl. The dog pees and leaves its mark. The artist leaves the mark too, about what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. And then, of course, the artist looks like he's getting his just desserts here. Another image. Some of them are relatively harmless looking, but then some of them aren't. So here we have the thrill killer waiting for this girl with a baseball bat. The big thing about this article is to look at the towns and cities where they've posted this material, and then think of them as a potential target site. This wall is in Washington, D.C., by the way, for what the New World Order has in mind. Royan, France. Malmo, Sweden came up many times. This is another body under these bicycles in Malmo, Sweden. This is a very bizarre type of thing as well. Fairfax, Virginia, a lot of good things happen in Fairfax, Virginia, closer to the CIA home. This child locked up in their locker at school. So we just wonder, why is this art imitating life, or life imitating this art? Do they have something planned for us? We always have something planned for us. It's just, what can we do about it? One of the big things we can do about it, of course, is we can change the channel, turn off their programming, come somewhere else where you can be advised, or at least learn how to see. I'm not telling you what to see, but once you start to think for yourself, and you see these images, and you see these pictures, and you hear these words, then you know something's coming. And when it's coming to your hometown, then that's time for you to start taking action by telling people in a much broader way. One young fella put out a good video about just the fact they stopped the subway in New York City and diverted people from going to the new One World Trade Center site for some strange reason. And he sees that as an important moment in perhaps training for or precipitating a false flag event. So when you recognize that, it's just like you recognize someone have the signs of a heart attack. Well, you can start taking action to stop the heart attack. And you can save your town, you can save your villages. As you learn about these false flag attacks and how they work, you can stop them. You can see, you can read between the lines, just like they do. Because they have to do this. This is their sacred religion. Just like you go to certain churches, you have to perform certain things to participate in the ceremony. This is their ceremony. They have to have the sacred numbers, they have to have the signs, the symbols, they have to be there, or they can't do their massacres and dirty work. It's just you haven't been trained to notice them or look at them, so just like a bird flying way above your head, you don't see the fine detail. But you're learning, you're catching on. I see that in a lot of people. That's important. We've been following some of these ships that are playing the shell game. We noticed something very bizarre, of course. I didn't notice it right at first, but Thor Liberty had its cargo designation changed. So when we said it disappeared off Portugal and it reappeared in the Caribbean, somewhere in between, it went from Hazard A Major, explosives and things that go bang in the night, like Patriot missiles, to just plain old cargo. They could have just done it to cover it up, but these international safety laws are very specific, and as you travel from country to country, you have to designate your dangerous materials or you run into a lot of problems. I think they offloaded the stuff. I think they put it on another ship, and I think they sent it to the Middle East. But that's just good luck on our part to notice at the right time and having the wherewithal to be able to speak it. Because if you don't speak it, nothing can happen. So ultimately, this Thor Liberty is supposed to end up presently going to Korea, to the Chin Hae Naval Base. And if we have the picture for the screen on this one, Aaron, we see something very pertinent is this Viking ship. And Prince Charles is going to lead a fleet down the Thames in a Viking ship, specially made ship. So that just jumps out and bites you that something's happening. This base is at the tip of South Korea. It's their naval base, major naval base. And they've also been doing all kinds of drills and preparation. Preparation for what? When the toys come to roost? Of course, that's something that just really, I thought, bizarre, is that they had these like Islamic-looking terrorists in South Korea. The North Koreans don't have to put on a disguise, baby. They just come in and blow you up. And they weren't one for the body pack of explosives. Here was our leader of the forces in South Korea. And you just can't help but see, you know, he's got the Admiralty flag on his uniform, so he's not really representing the United States as it existed once when it was a country. It's the corporation. He's got the Admiralty flag. The big UN flag in the background, because technically they're still at war. And they're working for the United Nations, not the United States. And this was our details on Thor Liberty that we found, where we see right there the new type where it would say Hazard A Major is changed to cargo. In fact, they've changed a lot of things on that website. And there's Chucky's little boat for the flotilla led by his 88-foot row barge, the Gloriana, because as they're bringing in the New World Order, they have Gloriana. And of course, we're the slaves, so we handle those oars as opposed to doing anything decent like commanding the ship. But these are things that we have to worry about and be concerned about. So we followed our other ship as well. With Thor Liberty, we followed Global Star and found out that it's now going to the United Arab Emirates, to Fujairah. I was just lucky I found the French translation that said where it was going to, because it's gone off the radar screen. It's incommunicado. It's supposed to report its position twice a day, like all the other ships in the world. But for some reason, this derelict tanker going to the scrap heap is immune from that. So it's practicing something similar to what naval vessels would practice, complete secrecy about where they're going. But this little bit slipped out. This Fujairah, and of course Ra, the sun god, is a major port. It's a free trade zone. Free trade zones aren't, the laws of the land don't apply in a free trade zone. So they really don't have to check in with customs and do a lot of the formal things that you do. We reported that with the Indian Customs Intelligence complaining about free trade zones in their country, that they don't have control of the goods coming across, and they're worried about people opening up containers by taking the hinges off and transplanting cargoes, dangerous cargoes, terror cargoes. And then you go to the airport and you're frisked 6 ways from Sunday. The Australians almost want to barbecue you now in their X-ray machine, but these things go along. And then it was just kind of funny, while I was looking at this, I just made a point of researching the Arctic Sea, because that's another ship I was following a few years ago too, because it disappeared off the radar for 3 weeks. And then of course, being a radical, when it was down here at Cape Verde, Instantly I said, that ship's there for a reason, even though it was never reported. I said, it's got to have anti or surface-to-air missiles on it, and it's waiting for Hillary Clinton because she's leaving Cape Verde after her African sojourn. Now there's a really, wild-eyed accusation, and sure enough the Russians arrest the ship, and later they tell us there was surface-to-air missiles on that ship. Where was NATO? Where was the United States? Where was everybody else? Looked like somebody wanted to whack Hillary back then. She even ran to the arms of Bill Clinton. That must have been a sight. A big sight. That's how dangerous it was. But we reported it. Because we reported it, the advantage is, of course, we save our bacon. And then while doing some of the research for this, then I just find something else that's rather nasty. This ship, the Gulf Eaglets. A whole bunch of ships that are just dead. Nobody's hurt, they just park them somewhere. It's decommissioned or lost, it says where it was last seen, and it's here too, right in the hot zone. Last year was its last reported position. So what I'm wondering about this ship being left here off Dubai is this another one of these rendition things? Is this a CIA secret jail? You just park this thing somewhere, load it up with prisoners. No one's ever going to know. No one's ever going to find out. No one's ever going to follow it. What the hell's it sitting there for? It's got to be good. Or do they use it as a command center to put things on to prepare for the false flag operation? Because after it sits there for about a year and nobody, other sailors go by it every year. Well, that's just the old derelict ship, Gulf Eagle. Nobody cares about that. You just go by it, you go by it, go by it. But maybe it's been prepared, loaded up, and made ready for a future operation. It happens all the time. Happened here in Toronto. They did this with a ship down on Cherry Street, and they were bringing explosives into it. And our special forces, our police, and our intelligence agencies were getting ready for our own false flag operation here in Toronto, well known as the Toronto 18 case, where they arrested 18 stupid idiots who hold their imaginary info bomb. Well, they plant real explosives in the downtown core and blow it up and blame it on the idiots. We fall for it every time. But see, we had a well-trained listener who spotted it, who saw it, who reported it, and told as many people. One of the most important people he told was me, because I started following these guys late at night, and we turned this off. And we came across that ship again when it met in Montreal with another ship that was on Lake Erie. And all the sailors got sick from poison gas. Hello, poison gas at Christmas time? They were ready to do it again. And that ship rendezvoused with the same ship that they used for the Toronto terror attack. So we started following it again. And even though you're alone or in a small group, you're ready. They pull anything. As soon as the so-called holiday's over, I got you, baby. I saved all the courses, meetings, where everybody was. We can nail it down. We followed this ship from its history, right from Australia, where they store weapons of mass destruction, all the way up to an American port, where all of a sudden, over the Christmas holidays, they needed some immediate chemical weapons technicians. And then it comes through the canal and ends up in Montreal. We're on to it. Nobody can do that for you. This isn't armchair quarterbacking like every other show that's around. After it happens, everybody's got a big story to try to get some kind of market share, make money, sell something, whatever. Not us. We're finding out key intelligence, taking advantage of that, and using it immediately to try to stop these dastardly plots from happening in the first place. That's what makes it different. That's why that channel is something you should be supporting. That's why this show is something you should be supporting. What would happen if they let a shipload of poison gas loose somewhere and killed thousands of people? One of them could be you. You don't get a second chance. There is no second place winner in a fight like this. You either survive or you die. As I've said many times before, the world moves at the speed of the predator, not the prey. You're the prey. Sometimes we can catch up and slap the predator a little bit and take it off the scent. We can only do that here because nobody else is even going to attempt to walk on faith on the clouds. because I guess they don't have any faith. And even if they did, well, they'd probably get the retirement policy, as our author friend in the Giffords book got on Saturday. So one of the big stories we were following was the missing Russian scientist, and that just started to get me to clue in to looking at what the hell's going on down there. This is a close-up picture of Lake Vostok, where they drilled successfully, so they say, to get ice samples from the core in a place that's very hospitable, more close to the South Pole than to the extremities of the continent. Lake Vostok is bigger than Lake Ontario. It's a completely untapped body of water that could go back millions and millions of years, being clean, decent water with other life forms possibly in there. And some of those life forms are very pertinent because they've already come out and been analyzed for years. And what these life forms are, and what's so important about them, is they have virus-eating viruses. Can you imagine that? How many people die of viral infections all around the world? You think this would be like the major focus of the health fraternity, would be to develop these things so that we have viruses to kill viruses? How many lives would be saved? How much better would we live? It's very important, but it's just sort of swept under the rug by mainstream media like it doesn't exist. The Germans went down to Antarctica in 1938, 39, and through World War II, maybe after World War II. There's allegations of secret fleets and submarines missing at the end of the world. All the German commerce raiders that are portrayed in movies and many books, they went to Antarctica, and I always wondered why. Why would they want to go to Antarctica? Like, you're way out of the war zone. What's important down there? Because maybe they did build bases under there. There's a lot of UFO sightings down there. The Germans had things that were like UFOs. Was it alien technology? And then, of course, the big one is the Americans invaded Antarctica. They brought an aircraft carrier task force to Antarctica with 3 separate groups to this task force to attack it from 3 different directions. Very, very bizarre. That was called Operation High Jump, 1947. There's some things that you just don't want to take into the ice down there. It'd be like one of those old World War II destroyers or a submarine. Like, they have no benefit to any research group. They're very vulnerable to the ice. They're too small to carry enough supplies. They're just basically a big burden to carry. Unless you're into combat, then you need them. And there's allegations that there was combat. The Chilean press reported that. The admiral of the fleet, Admiral Byrd, the noted polar explorer, said several times to the Chilean press that there was something about the Americas being at threat, that there was some sort of flying craft that could travel from pole to pole very, very quickly, and that we have to protect ourselves and be ready for an attack. It's a very strange thing to say if you're just checking on the ice down there. But that's what he said. Of course, he didn't live too long after that either. He died early and quickly. And the man he's shaking hands with or looking at there with his penguin is James Forrestal, Secretary of the Navy, another man who suicided, or arkancided as we call it today. He fell to his death outside the presidential suite window at Bethesda Naval Hospital. Suicide. There's only one problem. There was scratch marks all over the window frame. So it's like he changed his mind and tried to do a 180 and come back in the window. No, no, no. He was fighting for his life as they were pushing him out the window. But once he's dead, dead men tell no tales. They just get an aircraft carrier named after them. But what did he really know about what was going on in Antarctica? That is a real hot button issue that anyone who's worked in any type of research in this has felt the firm hand of authority coming down on them for spilling the beans on that. This is an image of some type of force that was captured in a photograph. It's like a pulsar of some energy. The picture was taken in 1966. It's not a very nice place to be. But then as we look into this, we find, Al Gore's down here. This is the bow of the National Geographic Explorer. This isn't his cruise. That's another thing I found very, very suspicious, is here's like the hoity-toity of the world, Richard Branson, James Cameron, Al Gore, and the assembled multitudes of global warming and politics are all on this ship going into the ice, and there's no pictures. I started looking for, you got James Cameron, right? He's a noted filmmaker. Like, where's the pictures? Even something simple from a $100 digital camera. I figured they'd be photographing it very well and passing it around. There were very, very few pictures. They may have put some up later, but then the same thing happened as well. The ship disappeared off the radar again. The NG Explorer just didn't report its position anymore after we started turning on the light. Why? Because they're up to no good. What else could there be? And then another bizarre thing, that Prince William is transferred to the Falkland Islands. The Falkland Islands, to be a rescue pilot for what? Penguins? He's got to take Dolly the sheep somewhere for surgery? That's just ridiculous. Except if there is something going on down there and the elite rich are participating in something, he may very well be going to meetings, because the Falkland Islands isn't very far, especially by air. And you're right off the radar screen. Like, the prince attends a meeting somewhere off Tierra del Fuego on a ship, or even evacs all the way to Antarctica, nobody's going to know. So if they had Nazi bases there, if something survived or someone survived, who's going to know? But he could be there to represent the Queen. And he also got a good backup with one of Britain's newest destroyers, HMS Dauntless. And then for people who look into some of the radar images and freeze them and capture them, this was one. This is the Falkland Islands here over to the right. And this is an image north of Tierra del Fuego, in a base where German scientists used to work after World War II, developing all kinds of technology. They got Juan Perón in a lot of trouble for telling people there was all kinds of really advanced technology German scientists were working on. These patterns were seen very, very regularly in Australia and have a similar layout in many of the places there. And Australia is just on the flip side of Antarctica. Why are they there? What are they doing? We don't know. But at least we look at it and we ask the questions. Somebody's got to do it. Because what's the big thing about the American Constitution, which we have a video from a justice of the Supreme Court mocking while she's interviewed on a Middle Eastern TV show, that it's not good enough, but it starts with we, the people. We are at war. We're being taken over. We're being sacrificed to who knows what, financially, militarily, strategically. Whatever you can do, however you do it, you are we, the people. Whatever your field of expertise is, that's where you are the government. Because they've lied to us since we were children to tell us there's only 3 levels of government. No, there's not. There's 4. They left out we, the people. The other 3 work for us, for convenience sake. And we have a contract with them that as long as they follow the constitutional values, that everything's okay. As soon as they start breaking that contract, we're under no obligation to submit to them anymore. We have to take the power back, we, the people, until we establish something else or restore what we've had. So whatever you're into, you're we, the people. I'm doing media to report to you what's really going on to the best of my ability to give you a fighting chance. You have to take that information and do something with it. It's not an armchair quarterback thing. It's not a sit on your ass thing. It's a stand up and do something thing. And if you don't stand up and do something, you're going to pay a horrible price for that. I'll make light of Syria probably Thursday night. But you see people walking down the street with this big placard saying, where is everybody? Well, where were you? What did you do before this happened? How did you prepare? You did nothing. And you didn't have the right to bear arms in your Constitution. I'll bet dollars to donuts on that one. And then it started. And the monster started to consume you. And about all you knew was how to watch Madonna flash her boobies on TV somewhere or something equivalent to that. You didn't know how to fight. You didn't know how to think tactically. You didn't know how to survive. Well, now you're learning. You're learning real good. There's only one problem. The body count's high. Because you don't know anything and you're just being thrown into the maelstrom. So it don't matter who you are, don't matter what you are. They eat you whenever they feel like it. So conveniently as well, another one of those strange deaths as we start reporting things about Antarctica, James Cameron's crew from a lifetime of films is killed in Australia in a plane crash. This is just absolutely bizarre. So Cameron's on the National Geographic Explorer. And this chap here that's sitting at a control panel, Mike DeGruy, and his associate Andrew White, perished in this crash. The helicopter just barely took off. It was just feet above the ground. And then the tail rotor crashed into the ground. It crashed and burned. Everybody was killed. Witnesses said there was that loud popping sound, almost like an explosion beforehand. Ooh, yes, they're good at those. Mr. Wright had a great movie. I guess I should try to find it and see if it's available to put on the site, Sanctum, where he writes a script about people going into caves in Papua New Guinea and getting trapped in what's called the Devil's Restriction. There's a fierce storm above. Communication is lost, almost like scientists at Lake Vostok. They can't get out. The cave collapses and they have to look for an alternate way out. Quite a filmography. He was an avid diver, worked on many projects, including the Titanic and things like that. This is the crash site. There isn't much left behind. When they take you out, especially in the air crashes, they do a very good job. There's no other thing you can say but sabotage. When you look at the map, you just see a lot of the words here that just, loud explosion, bombardary. This place here, Pig Island, so they degrade you and put you down. The Prince's Highway. This Mundamia, down here on the bottom. Damn you men, damn you mun. Now Ra, an invocation of the sun god. Maybe it's all wild-eyed conspiracy talk, but there's a lot of strange words around that crash site that almost make it look like it's a frame-up job. And then, of course, when we look into Mr. DeGruy, we find out that he did a lot of filming. One of the big things he did filming on with Wave Productions was this Deepwater Horizon. He was there, baby. He went underneath. He filmed it. He gets on CNN. He's on Piers Morgan's show, and we bring up Piers Morgan in our past because he's news of the world. He's one of their editors. He's one of the guys who lies and cheats and covers things up. So he brings him on the show, and of course he ends up dead. This is Mr. DeGruy checking oil samples. He's working with Corexit to find out how it reacts in the environment, because he is an academic. He's a graduate in marine biology. He's got a Bachelor of Science degree. He's worked in the ocean for 35 years. He knows his stuff academically, technically, and he's a trained observer. And he writes this big long report we have here on the website about Corexit and what's it doing, and saying that they made a mistake. This wasn't the thing to do. It was wrong. They should have just let the oil float to the top. They could have skimmed it and taken it away. That Corexit is a dangerous substance. It's hazardous to the environment. It's going to ruin the food chain, and it's going to kill lots of people. And talking like that gets you killed in a helicopter crash. Because who knows what else he knew? He probably got away with that one. But what else did he know? What did he know about deep down Antarctica? Probably too much. And then while I'm researching some of these viral things that go after other viruses and kill them, I just find like another little thing to verify some of the things I've said. When they had a lot of these storms in the Midwest, and they blew open a lot of places, and some of them were near university campuses and such, I was adamant that they were taking out weapons of mass destruction places. We have conspiracy theory with Jesse Ventura, where he talks there's tens of thousands of these locations in the United States. Tens of thousands. And then I find a little article that was related to one of these virus articles that talks about one. A pandemic's dirty tricks. The final genetic component of the virus arrived from virology professor Yoshiro Kawaoka's lab at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And these are the guys who are making the deadliest form of the influenza flu virus, the 1918 flu pandemic. Doing it right at a university, a human shield almost on that one. Doing it right in your backyard. Making something to wipe you out. Do the kids at the campus really know what's going on down there? And then our colleague John sent us an article about who's behind the outbreaks. The CDC won't say, so there was some outbreaks of various things at fast food places, and the CDC just doesn't report. It says there was an outbreak, but no one's responsible. It's just absolutely bizarre. And one of the big troublemakers about Antarctica is Julian Assange, our WikiLeaks man. He made it quite plain. He says, I got your secrets. I know stuff about you. And I'll tell the world. They just didn't tell us what those big secrets were and what he was going to tell the world. So what I find out in my research for this is one of the ones that he had was talking about the UFO bases in Antarctica. And the fact that Americans had been waging a war down there since 2004. And that there's been high alert levels related to this. That's a showstopper. Nobody's going to tell you that. I will. That's why you come here. And then the Argentines are making accusations about the British, that the British are bringing nuclear weapons to the Falkland Islands. What the Sam Hill would they want to do that for? Because Julian Assange says there's been a war going on down there since 2004. And then one of the little sidebar articles I have a lot of links on that Antarctic thing. They're big, long ones. A lot of them are from Nexus magazine, detailing right down as far as you can go in unclassified material to find out what's really going on down there. And they made a point that in the 50s, the United States exploded 3 nuclear weapons in Antarctica in this so-called war. 3 of them. Some of the allegations are they were sealing some of these tunnels that go underground. They're like Jules Verne's tunnels, just massive. Unbelievable power systems down there. One of these articles goes into great detail to say the British commandos were sent there, recruited top guns from World War II, because they were picked immediately right after. They went to Palestine after World War II. They were just sucked up, sent down to the Falkland Islands for specialized Arctic warfare training and put into battle. A couple of them survived. Most of them were killed. But one of the survivors did leave a legend of what he did, what he saw. And he said there were large creatures down there, a humanoid type creature, very furry, something that maybe you would have in a rumor about, like a Yeti or the Snowman or Bigfoot or something like that. And he said that's what they were fighting, and they were ruthless. They killed many of his men very quickly. They could move very quickly. And these were the top fighters of the world in their day. And the Brits didn't tell the Americans. They did this on their own. So they said they used explosives to seal some of these tunnels. They took very heavy casualties. We can't confirm that or deny that. We just know we have a lot of things now pointing south. And everybody's got the same story at different time levels. Whether it was in the 40s, the 50s, right up to the modern day, everybody seems to be converging on Antarctica. Our Microsoft brethren, that's a show I did a few years ago, they bought a yacht for $500,000 and scrapped it, or sold it, got rid of it, because they needed another one, which was even better. It was like the James Bond ship. Had a hollow bay underneath to put the $250 million submarine yacht inside. And they went to Antarctica. And my big comment was, well, why didn't you just rent a cruise ship for the couple of weeks it takes? Like, I'm sure you could rent the whole ship for a hell of a lot less than $750 million. And what did they need 30 Navy SEALs for, to give protection to the ship for? Like, these penguins are really nasty little buggers. But everybody seems to want to go there. A couple of cruise ships were lost off Antarctica. It's a happening place. But then one of the Google codes we broke doesn't pull any punches. They bring up a chap, Francois Truffaut, French filmmaker, so nobody knows who the hell he is. But he was an actor in a film called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And he's a very unique Google Doodle because it came with 3. There was 3 of them. So he almost looks like in this doodle like he's standing on the shore of Antarctica looking out at a buoy or something like that on the sea. And then this is a rendition of the U-boats going there after the war, and these are the things. They're illustrations, but they look like the photographs of the UFOs the Germans had on land in Europe. This is a picture of one being towed by a truck. No, doesn't leave a whole lot of room for interpretation there about what this thing is. Were these the super secret weapons that Hitler was talking about? It's a rather large thing. You see some men standing on top, men standing on the side, a house here. It's a very large craft with the Iron Cross on it. And there we have our man with some stills from the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So that's what the Google Doodle's telling us, I believe. Then we see this ship that's stranded. On the website we have a short. That's conspiracy-cafe.com. We have a short about an Australian film, champion film, from one of their film festivals. It just shows there's like a big disaster with a whole bunch of beach ships. It was called Vostok Station, a winner at the Sundance Film Festival. So we have images of stranded ships there too, just like we had in the movie Close Encounters. Then of course we get a big jumble of letters here that nobody bothers to probably look at except me. I like to play with puzzles. But there's a lot of words here, like just start off in this side here. Conspiracy. Helicopter. Oh yeah, James Cameron's crew were killed in a helicopter crash. The words are all over. Real. Up here, evacuation. Garbage truck. The word when. Scan. A moon. It's all over. You go diagonally too, and we have the name of the character, Claude Lacombe. So this is just full of clues about what could or could not be happening. Those are the other 2 doodles from his other films like Quatre Cents Coups, the 400 Blows, Close Encounters. And then of course one of the other films he was famous for is the classic Fahrenheit 451, where they burn the books and the knowledge because we're not supposed to know anything. We're just the sheeple. But that Google Doodle didn't go out like all the others in the past where they just put it on the main page right away. It was something you had to look for. And Agent 99 found it. Good girl. And then almost immediately the next day has to be on my day off, so I just check quickly to do something. I go, oh God, they got a Google Doodle again. So there goes my day, because this one's very complicated. It's very complicated because it involves the writer Dickens. And he's a very prolific author. There's a lot of books, a lot of material. The big thing is the elite rich are going to take a tour of the Dickens places. So I'm going to take the same tour, a tour of London primarily, but I'm looking at it from the numerology, the symbols, the way they are. And that's why it's a good thing to be affiliated with my good buddy Timothy Spearman, who does a show now on another network, Writing on the Wall, because he's more the academic. But instantly he picks out the way they have these figures. They're inside these round circles. They're in a noose. The pallbearer is inside a noose. The maiden has her head inside of the noose. Scrooge is holding up the lamp of the Illuminati. Above him is Tiny Tim. He's crippled with polio. So that's symbolic of the plague that they may release on the people. He also mentions as well that it's symbolic of the Tale of Two Cities motif, like they're going to be attacking two different cities instead of one. So we look at the true history of the world. We brought up that Congressman Larry McDonald was involved in the 1972 Munich massacre. It was a black ops, a false flag. We've paid the price for it forever since, by giving up our liberty for security to feel safe for something that was orchestrated by a faction of our government anyway, at least rogue elements inside. The CIA was working handily with the LAPD to do all sorts of nasty things back then. But of course Larry McDonald got the reward. Dead men tell no tales. He was killed in the takedown of KAL 007 over Korea. They love to kill and slaughter. We brought up the bee thing in the New York Times because they got to tell you before it happens that these artists were actually taking apart windows and building structures outside the World Trade Center near the point of impact of where the planes were hitting. They're not qualified engineers, they're not qualified builders, they're not even qualified window installers. They were just artists. And that they drew pictures, they wrote words, they had images of what was going to happen a long time before it happened. And they published them because there's no fear of getting caught, because they work for the Illuminati. This is the joy and the thrill of it all. And they could even be featured in the New York Times, having their pictures taken. But the diagrams they made, especially the one where they have the World Trade Center and almost like a flux before it collapses, tells you that they had prior knowledge. That's enough to get warrants. That's enough to start a serious investigation on who these people are and where are they going, what do they do, what kind of money is changing hands, because they even made references to banks and a cash flow. Like, you got them. Except for one problem: the dogs in the media are intelligence agents too, and they just let them go. They do the work for the evil and then wash their hands of the truth. But we showed it to you. It's archived on the website in pictures and words and in the shows we did on this. And that's probably one of the other reasons why they get very nervous having us on the Power Hour, because the forces of darkness have too many ears listening to this story. Well, they do the same thing here in London. I was just shocked that, you see, this was the main focus of what would be a Dickens tour. He walked by this going to and from his job. This is the Golden Dog and the Golden Bowl. It was displayed outside Rowland House in the late 1800s. They took it down in 1931. So even though they've taken these things down, the effect doesn't change. He walked by regularly in the 1820s, going to his blacking factory job on Lant Street. And I don't know if you want to know what lant is, but it's aged urine. They use it for a lot of things. One of them is making beer. So if your beer tastes like piss, it is. You also use it to manufacture gunpowder, pastry, and for cleaning. And of course the dog leaves his lant all over town so you can follow the trail. So where did Dickens go? How did he get across the river? He crossed at Blackfriars Bridge. And who was hung on Blackfriars Bridge? Roberto Calvi, the banker for the Vatican. The dog licking the golden bowl. Hung like a dog. And this is the pub that Dickens frequented, the Prospect of Whitby. It's a very famous pub, a very famous area. The pirates used to come there. And who are the pirates now practicing Admiralty law? So Captain Kidd was hung there. Captain Bligh and Captain Blood drank their ales there. And from across the river, when you look at this place even today, this is what you see. Canary Wharf, the big business financial district of London. Looking through the noose that was in the Google code. The hanging. Dickens had an unfinished work called The Mystery of Edwin Drood. Dickens made reference to the opium dens on that island. Many films were filmed there. It's quite the place. The island is called, of course, the Isle of Dogs. The Dog and the Bowl. They filmed some of these, pandemic movies, 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later, the James Bond classic, The World Is Not Enough, Doctor Who's new series, where Blonde, the Slitheen, survives the bombing of 10 Downing Street. Ooh, don't go there. World War III, by teleportation to the Isle of Dogs. Boomtown. Boom. The symbolism couldn't be any clearer. Iron Maiden recorded 2 minutes to midnight there in 1984. Then from across the river you can see another part of his tour, St. George the Martyr Church in Southwark, named after St. George, the Roman general who refused to execute Christians, as ordered to by Diocletian in 303 AD. He was put to death for his faith. But it's like I tell you all the time, just say no. You don't have to do the evil. He believed in the 3 C's, charity, chivalry, and courage, and so should you. And the spire of the church can be seen here. That one just looked like a nice photograph, so that's why I picked that one. But the importance of the church is, like a lot of the things on my tours, they were doing major renovations. So they opened up the basement and destroyed the crypt, which goes back to Rome. It's an archaeological dream. And they destroy it. And the same thing, they didn't take many pictures, if any, of anything either. They just destroyed it. So from September 2005 to March 2007, this church was closed for repair. Or maybe a certain kind of renovation. So Dickens' father was in the debtor's prison, Marshalsea, and the wall of that prison backed onto the cemetery of the church. So there's a little picture of Dickens, 12 years old, working at this blacking factory. That's the wall of the Marshalsea prison. So of course I go under the bridge, because I can, because we have the internet. We can travel all over the place. And what do I find? The graffiti artists. Most of the graffiti is just a mismatch all over everything, except here's one very clear picture. And we have the shark, the predator. We have this collapsed thing here that could be like steel girders all bent out of shape. Very unique, very interesting. There's a skate park under the festival hall. And what is the shark, the predator? He's noted for what? The fins. That's the silhouette you see on his back. And that's Fish Island, another island where they're going to hold the Olympics. The Olympic site was built on a nuclear waste dump. There's a big cement container that's holding something that's nasty. Very nasty. A lot of the other stuff was taken out by train. Then the graffiti artists on Fish Island, which as an area is called the Wick, welcome you with this monkey with an egg beater in its brains and electrical circuits attached to it. Because as artists, they have a fete for the wicked. These signs are almost like Madonna's. If you remember, you have the horns on the head and these winged things along the side, very similar to her costume. And they're not shy. They tell you what they think. It's not even art. David Cameron, ha ha ha. We got gorillas in our midst, not monkeys, gorillas, like warriors. Satan's School for Girls, they know who they work for and represent. And you're fooled again and again and again, because they can put this right in front of your nose and you're not going to see it. And it always happens on Tuesday. So maybe it'll happen on Tuesday, because that's what they said. And then we have this image of, just a cute little photograph of someone holding up the sun. And what did we show you on a previous show? They had this giant, big-ass sun in London. And when you follow it, at various degrees, it takes you to the Olympic site and to the Masonic temple. And then we have the monkey bleeding from the eyes. The ears are very unique because they look like the old pipes from Fish Island that they take out to use along the trail, the Greenway, along the Olympic site. They're from the Northern Outfall Sewer, another place that's closed till 2014. And in the classic movie that we described above, The World Is Not Enough, they use what's called a pig, or like a little capsule, to travel through an oil pipe to bring a nuclear weapon somewhere to cause mayhem. We have an old nuclear site, and we've got all these pipes closed. Do we have the pig in the pipe taking something nuclear to the Olympic site? And it was just funny in this image, we have a protester on top, even though they weren't connected, but we had protests. When they were moving these nuclear materials, people just lined up to say, no, we're afraid of a nuclear accident if you're moving these nuclear materials by rail. Then on our website, we have a map of the Olympic area. A lot of these old roads were always around when Dickens was around. It's a very old town, London. And then we have a conspiracy, as they tried to kill Dickens. They were repairing a bridge. He was coming up to it with a train. What they should have done is put explosives on the track, not to blow up the train, but like warning bangers, so that when the train approached, because the bridge was under repair, that the engineer would know to stop the train in a timely manner. Someone didn't set the charges, so they didn't know. And they came up to the bridge, and of course the train fell off. People were killed, people were wounded. Dickens survived. He was with his second woman in his life. The original woman he married and had children with was the daughter of an influential banker. Times do not change, do they? But they didn't get him. But after it was over, he just wasn't one for writing anymore. His writing career was pretty much over. Because what did he do as an author to make change? He exposed the evil of the New World Order to keep people enslaved. Child labor, brutal conditions, debtors' prisons. Just an evil, violent, horrible way of life, which totally goes against the banksters, the gangsters, and the corporatists. So I'm sure he wasn't their friend, and maybe that's why they fixed his little red wagon as it went across the bridge. But something important too about these pigs. These are devices that go through all these pipes. A gentleman has come forward from the XL pipeline, and he's an insider, and he's revealing that these pigs, which are monitoring equipment to check the pipes for weaknesses, deficiencies, so that you can take preventive maintenance action, has reported that these things have been tampered with. So they will not function the way they're supposed to be. The software for the crucial piece of pipeline safety equipment, the smart pigs, have flaws. And the industry know they have flaws, so they won't pick out the cracks, the leaks, and the corrosion. And these pipes can crack and leak and possibly explode, resulting in deaths and severe economic and environmental hazards. This is being done on purpose. So when President Obama refused to issue the permit for the Keystone XL pipeline, may have been doing a favor, because if he knew about these flaws, building these pipelines could just be a recipe for disaster. But that's something to keep in touch with. If we have anything to do or say about knowledge of these pipelines, is to make sure that they are properly working, because the hazards afterwards, it's just like the one in the Gulf of Mexico. We have this piece of flawed equipment blowing, creating an environmental disaster beyond imagination, probably killing people still to this day. It's just mainstream media just doesn't go to look at these people's beds to see them suffer. They just don't bother. They have no emotions. It's all money. They're the whores of whores. And then one of the other little clues that are coming for London too, there's a replica of Rio de Janeiro's Christ the Redeemer statue may be coming to London, or at least a copy of it. So in a lot of ways, what are they telling us with that? Is Christ is coming. The big cloud coming through interstellar space. Christ arrives in a cloud. Is he coming? They also tell us about some of the asteroids and meteors and such coming through space. One of them was quite strange because they just seemed to come out of nowhere. Nobody tells us about them in advance. It was called BX-34. BX-34 is a transit line in New York City. So are they telling us something else? Is it just coincidence? Or is that the other twin city that we have to deal with? BX-34. New York, the other ultimate target of the New World Order. So maybe what we'll do now is we'll play a short video that I have here on the vaccination issue in Australia. They're just forcing it down everybody's throats.
You know, the other mothers want to make sure they're immunised as well, so...
But should parents have an extra financial incentive? The Australian government wants to increase levels of immunisation from an already high 90%. It plans to withhold over $2,000 in benefits from parents who don't take their children for 6 blocks of jabs over 4 years to protect against 12 diseases. It's controversial. Although the government says it's targeting those parents too busy or forgetful to get vaccinations done, some question the prevailing policy and don't like money coming into the equation.
If somebody's saying, oh, I'll pay you a couple of $1,000s to make a decision, you actually aren't making an informed decision based just on the science.
Neither Saffron nor Quincy have had any medical injections because of their parents' concerns over side effects. Australian parents can register as conscientious objectors and still get benefits, but that involves complicated forms, so all the assumptions are in favour of vaccination.
The benefits of vaccination for individual children and for the population far outweigh any risks.
Every parent wants to do the best by their child. Governments have a duty to do what they think is best for the population as a whole. For some, cash incentives are a good way to bring those two things together. For others, the need for bribes is proof the two are fundamentally opposed. Andrew Thomas, Al Jazeera, Sydney.
And how funny. Our media always picking on Al Jazeera sometimes, but, you know, who's covering it? Who's talking about what's important? a different form, a different type of media, just to say, we have problems. And this cloud that's coming, we have a piece here, Pyramid Power on the website. This photon cloud is descending towards Earth. We have links for that. Mysterious signals are coming from space. Also at a certain frequency, the vibration of the hydrogen molecule. So we have links to that too that are very, very important. There's researchers trying to get into the pyramids, to go underneath, to examine the deep tunnels underneath. Some people are trying to suggest that the pyramids globally are a defense network to protect us from whatever 2012 may have to offer from this cloud. So we have links under here for the frequency. They've made things that can transmit this frequency. That's very important. The frequency is 1420 megahertz. The signal was called SHGB02 plus 14A. It was heard 3 times starting in 2008. It goes back farther than that when you read the thing here that's called the WOW frequency. So it was first discovered in 1977. And the scientist wrote on the chart, "Wow," because ET is calling. Might not be calling home, but there was something out there communicating. And it's like the God code says that the chemicals in the DNA can be substituted for letters. And maybe that's one of the reasons this frequency is the vibration of hydrogen, because that's the predetermined frequency to get the communication started. It would be interesting to send something back at that 1420 hertz and see if we get it going and have a two-way communication with whatever's out there. But a lot of strange things are happening in the universe. We have, giant gas clouds on the sun. We have northern lights, the aurora borealis just going off like there's no tomorrow. They're beautiful effects. The solar storms, are they all connected? This is from one of the links of one of the articles. They say that there's a vortex blast, very similar to the one we saw in Antarctica coming out of this Mexican pyramid, the Aztec pyramid, the moon pyramid. A rendition of a force. And then you look at your American bill and you see like they took the capstone off the top of the pyramid. You have the missing capstone. A diagram of our solar system and the photon belt to show how we're going to advance through this. And then a rendition of, is this pyramid the Giza power plant? And then, of course, lots of strange things happening in the world, the sky quakes, the sounds underneath. We have another one that's just going to blow you away about things that have floated up on the coastline of Oregon that I haven't had time to research yet, but this is just unbelievable things. Boxes, square boxes, something that would look like a square cement block or something that can't be moved, that are making noises on the beaches on the west coast. So is this the rendition of what happens, that these pyramids come alive and blast the cloud? But who's supposed to come in the cloud? Christ is supposed to return in the cloud. Is this iconic cloud the Lord and Savior of the planet Earth returning? Who knows? We don't know. But one thing we do know is we ask a lot of questions. We might not know all the answers, but at least by forming some of these questions, we can get people to look at things a little better and maybe come up with some more answers. Because it is very, very, very important. This little article we had here, there were blue gel balls falling in Britain, which were very, very strange. This gentleman picked them up. Hopefully they live from handling them. but this was falling out of the sky. Have you ever seen anything like this in your life? And imagine they might have like a consistency of something like Jell-O or something. But these gels, some articles we have that go back in time say that they're not exactly a good thing, that they do break down, and when they break down they're a poison. They're a deadly neurotoxin. They can do genetic damage to sperm. If they're the same type that were falling in the 70s from a Ren's article, we don't know for sure, but like, you know, you see that in your garden, that's got to really lighten it up a little bit to say, whoa, what is going on? The Chinese are building replicas of European villages in China. This is a hamlet in the mountains of China that's the exact replica of an Austrian village. This is the Austrian village. You notice it's clean water, clean air, blue skies. And this is the Chinese copy down here, very, very dirty looking, a lot of smog, pollution, etc. But you got to wonder, like, what the Sam Hill are they building these things for? Because they're unoccupied, nobody's in them. If you want to buy a piece of it, they're very, very expensive as well. And then another thing that's just totally bizarre and off the radar screen is they've found things like this at the bottom of the Baltic Sea. So they describe it as an image of something that looks like the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. They don't know what it is yet. They haven't gone down to investigate it. Usually good divers don't tell you where their dive sites are because they don't want anybody to get there. But this little baby's going to go down and check it out eventually, and you know, maybe we'll have some idea about what's down there. Very, very strange and unique thing at the bottom of the ocean. But it's nice that you can come here and we can share a lot of this stuff and put it together, because what's coming for the world in the very near future could be ominous, whether that's financial collapses, wars, a just total reconstruction of the world as we know it. But this is the cutting edge. This is where it's at. This is Conspiracy Cafe, because that's why we come here. That's why we do this. We want to make a difference. We appreciate it if you help out and you make a difference too. Don't hesitate to contact us with the donate button or send anything by snail mail to come along, because if we work together, the lives we save can be our own. Because these changes don't have to happen in a negative format. The square root of 1% can change that. We have enough reach to do that. We can change destinies. And if we change destinies, we don't have to suffer through this, or a lot of it. So that's why we think it's a positive thing. That's why I do this. It takes a lot of work. I could probably put in about 40 hours of research just for 1 hour of show, because it has to be done. Because we don't want World War III. We don't want nuclear terror. We don't want to be taken advantage of anymore. We want to be sovereign, independent, and free, and control our destinies the way we were meant to live by our Creator, who left His calling card in all our DNA. We know. And we're not going to fall sucker for this stuff. You want to go to the stupor bowl? Well, you go to the stupor bowl, but you can die just as vanquished as Whitney Houston died. Working for them isn't the answer. We have a different way of doing things. We want to see a better world. It can happen. And it happens here. Conspiracy Cafe. It happens at that channel. It happens in downtown Toronto. And it's going to happen again Thursday. So we thank you for coming out. We thank that channel for giving us a little extra time, because we had a lot of material. It just seems to pile up and pile up. We thank Randy and Hugh and Aaron for working like slaves to put it all back together again, because they had a big mess to deal with. But that's what it's all about, baby. So thanks for coming out, and we'll see you next time. Good night.